Earth is special, not just because it's our home, but because of all the planets in the solar system, it is unique. It has abundant water, a breathable atmosphere, and a stable climate. And we know that there are many other systems like ours out there. So why not find one with similar conditions to Earth so we can settle there when this planet runs out of resources or, when Jeff Bezos gets tired of lending us his rocket ships? But what if we went one step further and made our search even more specific? What if Earth were the only planet in the solar system that could support life? How would that change things for humanity? Would we become a multi-planetary species or eventually die out like the dinosaurs? Let's take a look at how humans would fare if Earth were the only planet that could support life. No exoplanets, no Mars, no Venus, just Earth. First off, let's talk about why this scenario is unlikely to happen anytime soon. There are billions of Earth-like planets out there in the Milky Way, or so scientists believe, but finding them is difficult since they are so far away. The nearest star system to ours, Alpha Centauri, is 4.4 light-years from us. So even if we managed to send a spaceship there, it would still take thousands of years to get there. And who knows what will happen after it arrives. But for the sake of science fiction, let's pretend that Earth really is the only planet in the universe that can support human life. That means we have two choices: leave Earth or die. The first option is pretty hard since we don't have any spaceships capable of interstellar travel. We do have some cool stuff planned, like SpaceX's Starship, which could theoretically take people to Mars. But that's only if the ship works, and only if we can make sure that it's safe for passengers. Plus, Mars isn't exactly known for its beaches and endless buffets of sushi. It's cold, dry, and full of toxic chemicals that can kill you pretty fast. Venus is another option. After all, it's relatively close to Earth and has a lot of water vapor in its atmosphere, which might mean it has oceans. Unfortunately, Venus also has a super thick atmosphere that traps heat very well. As a result, the surface temperature of the planet is around 370 degrees Celsius, which is hot enough to melt lead. And the atmospheric pressure is 92 times higher than Earth's. So even if we managed to cool Venus down to room temperature, we wouldn't be able to breathe there. So we're stuck on Earth. Time to die, right? Well, maybe not. Humans are pretty adaptable creatures. Take, for example, the Inuit people who live in the Arctic Circle. They have adapted to the extreme cold by developing special clothing and shelters that keep them warm in sub-zero temperatures. Now imagine that you are an Inuit person living in the Arctic Circle, except now the sun never sets, and the temperature never drops below 25 degrees Celsius. Life would suck, right? But humans are hardy. We would adapt to these changes and learn to survive in the new environment. Maybe we would develop gills to breathe underwater or feathers to fly through the air. Okay, maybe we wouldn't go quite that far, but we would probably find ways to grow crops and raise animals that could survive in the new conditions. For example, we could create new breeds of plants that absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere instead of oxygen, which would help reduce the greenhouse effect. As for animals, we could breed smaller, more energy-efficient creatures that don't need much food to survive. Over time, humanity would become a much more sustainable species that doesn't use up all the Earth's resources. This would be great for the planet since we wouldn't pollute it or destroy its ecosystems anymore. And it would also be great for us because we would finally stop fighting over limited resources like oil and water. Of course, this whole process of adapting to a new environment would take a long time, like millions of years. But hey, we have all the time in the world, right? Unless you believe in the heat death of the universe theory, in which case we only have a few trillion years left. Anyway, this doomsday scenario is unlikely to happen because even if Earth were the only planet in the universe that could support life, it wouldn't be the end of humanity. We could always just leave the planet and find somewhere else to live, even if it's just a virtual world. There's a theory that humans will eventually evolve into a kind of digital consciousness that lives inside computers. This may sound like science fiction, but it's actually something that many experts believe is inevitable. As technology advances, more and more aspects of our lives will be digitized. Our memories, our relationships, our jobs, everything. Eventually, we will become our digital avatars that interact with each other in cyberspace. And if this happens, we won't need to worry about the heat death of the universe or anything else for that matter, because we will be immortal. Okay, but let's be serious for a second. What if Earth really is the only planet that can support life? In that case, we would face some serious challenges like resource depletion, climate change, and overpopulation. Take, for example, water. Earth is often called the blue planet because more than 70% of its surface is covered in water. But most of this water is salty and undrinkable. In fact, only 3% of Earth's water is fresh water, and most of that is locked up in glaciers and ice caps. If the climate changes and those melt, we might end up with a global flood that wipes out most of humanity. Then there's the problem of overpopulation. Earth is currently home to more than 8 billion people, and the population is growing by more than 80 million each year. If nothing changes, there will be 11 billion people on Earth by 2100 and 14 billion by 2200. We simply don't have enough resources to support that many people. Finally, there's the risk of global disaster. It could be a massive earthquake, a volcanic eruption, or a pandemic. Any of these events could wipe out a significant portion of humanity. So what would we do in such a situation? Some people would probably try to build bunkers and survive the disaster in hiding. Others would try to escape to another planet. But those options aren't really viable. Building bunkers is only a temporary solution. And even if we manage to build spaceships that can carry people to other planets, where would we go? The only other planets in the solar system that could potentially support life are Mars and Venus. But both planets have serious drawbacks. Mars is too cold and dry. Venus is too hot and has a toxic atmosphere. So the only option for humanity would be to try and terraform one of these planets, meaning to change its environment so that it becomes more Earth-like. Terraforming Mars would be easier since it's closer to Earth and has a similar atmosphere, but it would still be a long and difficult process. We would need to warm up the planet, make it wetter, and create an ozone layer to protect it from harmful radiation. Even if we managed to do all that, there's no guarantee that Mars would be able to support human life. Terraforming Venus would be even more challenging, but it might be worth it in the long run. Venus is closer to Earth than Mars and has more water. Plus, its atmosphere is mostly made up of carbon dioxide, which we could use to create fuel. Of course, terraforming Venus would take centuries, if not millennia, but if it's done right, the result could be a planet that's even more hospitable than Earth. In the end, though, none of these scenarios are likely to happen anytime soon. Earth is the only planet in the solar system that we know can support life. Sure, we might find microbial life on Mars or in the oceans of Jupiter's moon Europa. But that's not the same thing. And besides, we don't have the technology to travel to other planets, let alone terraform them. For now, Earth is our only home. So we should cherish it while we can. Who knows how long it will be before something happens to it? Maybe a giant asteroid will smash into it, or the sun will explode, or maybe we'll just blow up the planet ourselves. So let's enjoy the time we have left on Earth and try not to screw it up too much.